Hi, welcome to Trap Souls Podcast. I'm here with Stacia Wills and Thomas Patrick, the profiler. Hopefully, I got that right. How's everybody doing besides hot and sweaty?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Just got off work a little bit ago and jumped on here, so we're doing good. So you guys are I heard about you, but I haven't heard about you. Then I started getting the Paracons more, and your name's just kind of exploding all over the place. So you want to jump into that, like how that came about, how you guys got into the Paracons?
Well, I'm going to let him go first with getting into Paracons because he has some himself.
So Paracons, just, word of mouth, a lot of it, but a lot of garnering relationships. I've been at the paranormal, I like to say, since the Dead Sea was only sick. And it's been a long time. I started out at the age of 14. I was discovered by Lorraine Warren and Ed Warren. And I actually got to learn from them. They were my building blocks. I went out, of course, on my own, made my mistakes over the years, but met so many people over the years to the point where a few years back, my partner that I work with, Charles Rosenay, we are the shaman and the showman, and we produce Paracons all over the New England area, actually over in Europe also, over in Transylvania. There's a lot of things that we do. But our biggest events coming up July 11th, not this weekend, the following weekend, is the Connecticut Paracon. And then after that, we will have the Connecticut Witch and Culture Festival. This will be in Hartford, Connecticut. And then near the end of the season in November, we have the Salem Paranormal and Horror Fest, of course, in Salem, Massachusetts. Those are the big ones we run. But when you meet people, you end up going to their Paracons too. So it's almost like we trade on and off. But I think this year for Stacia and I, the reason why we're at a lot of them this year is because of, as you see down there, Wardruna, our healing collective that's global, that we help people. And I'll let Stacia tell you about that. And that way she could let you know all about Wardruna, and we'll just kind of go back and forth.
Okay.
Well, I too, we're both shaman. I'm known as a Mulfor. My grandparents came from the Carpathia Mountains. We are known as the Carpathia Rusins. So we live in the Carpathia Mountains and we're known for our gifts. Everybody in my family is gifted. I just happen to be the creepy one. So, and with that comes generational curse breaking. So that was actually my job in the family. It's also how I see things. I am a clairvoyant medium, and when I have clients, they sit down in front of me and their relatives, I always say the dead are here to fix the shit they created. They start tattling on the bloodline, and that's where I start fixing things. How it worked with me is on my journey of actually healing the family trauma and setting things straight. I listen to my guides. I can talk to my guides. I see saints. I see angels. I see deities. Everything kind of pulls in. And they were all telling me which direction to go. Well, I got a message and they said, you're going to have this collective group. It's called Wardruna. I said, okay. I'm like, what's the word Wardruna? Not realizing it was like before this band came out. Okay. And I looked it up. It is a Viking word, but it was really huge in the Kievan Rus area. And that's where my ancestors are from. So I'm like, okay, thank you very much for that message. That makes sense. Meaning keeper of the secrets. So I just keep going through life. I'm meeting other mediums, other readers. I worked in the power plants, so I traveled a lot. I was around a lot of people, different modalities. People were recognizing what I do. Things got creepy on the power plant when I'm like, the precipitator is going to give you problems today. And everybody just kind of looks at me, or I'm like, sir, sit down, call a bus. He's getting ready to have a heart attack. And that night is on the table. So it didn't take long for people to actually figure out what I did. So it gave me a chance to really read a lot of people in a lot of situations. And as I'm going through these journeys and traveling, I'm healing myself. I find myself living here in Ohio after my son graduated. I came up here to Avon Lake Power Plant, fell in love with the area, and decided after my son graduated, we lived in Pennsylvania to settle down here. So for the last decade, I have really been working the Wardruna system, explaining people about these healing modalities, putting it together. And I built a team, an amazing team. And about 2 years ago, I was asked to be on a show. And through the show, I met this wonderful man who was also on the show. We decided to do a documentary at it's a known haunted house. It's called the Demon House. And we met for the first time, and everybody else knew that we were in love, but we didn't at that time. Like it was like instant right at first sight. And when I felt him behind me, and I turn around, and there he was. He was smiling, and I walked over. We hugged each other, and up out of my soul came, "I missed you." And I'm thinking, "Oh dear God, I hope he did not hear that." Like the soul spoke. I'm like, "Oh, please, please." I'm so embarrassed.
I'm laughing at her because my guides told me when I was young that you would meet the crazy redhead. I went through 2 relationships with redheads thinking they were the right one. Terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And I looked at her and I think more, I didn't really hear what she said, but all I heard was this could either go really, really good or really, really bad.
So, I got to spend more time with him as we were doing this documentary. And I had a therapist there. I was bringing in sections of Wardruna, and he actually got to see it in play. So what Wardruna is we do have the shamans, the mediums that people come to. People love that non-traditional taboo type of healing. They've done a lot of talk therapy. um, Therapy is no longer taboo. Mental illness is no longer taboo. But now they want to dive into, the dead, the family, the secrets. So, when they're sitting in front of me and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you got alcoholism on this side and sexual abuse on this side, and this one's telling this, this, and this. And by the way, grandma loves you." And they're just like looking at you, but I ripped the scab off. And from there, we have therapists, but we don't do talk therapy with these therapists. We do everything that is cognitive based. And it's the EMDR, the DBR. We get right, the therapists get right in there and start knocking out the trauma. But we also have hypnotherapists.
Akashic Records.
We have Akashic Records, past life, retrieval, because you can be hitting something and you're peeling layers. We hold 10 generations worth of trauma in our DNA strand. That's actually proven. We work with a geneticist over at university. And so you have this trauma that's built in. And then you also have the generational abuse. So sometimes you're slowly unraveling it until you get so far and you realize where it came from. You have to go into that DNA strand. And then you have to go into like past lives. You have to go into soul retrieval. We had a psychiatrist at Cleveland Clinic could stop in for a session. I had a client there with their permission. The psychiatrist was there. And after it was done, she goes, "You got done in 10 minutes. What would take me 10 months?" I said, "You're relying on the human to tell you their story. I just talked to the dead." They cut straight to the chase.
Yeah.
So it has really worked. And we have a very large group of shamans.
Mhm.
And each shaman, of course, does their own thing. I also have pulled in mediums like Christopher Lee, who is, running the Cleveland Paracon. Christopher's talents are amazing. He's also one of the Reiki healers for Wardruna. He's one of the hypnotists. He is part of Wardruna. Even though this was my concept and I came up with it and had the vision, it's not mine. It's a we.
Mhm.
We all were on our own healing journey, putting together these pieces. I was just a nutcase running around the country in power plants, collecting everybody up, going, "Come here, come here. I found you. I found you. I found you." And by the way, meet this one, meet that one. And it's, as a medium, you're only as good as the support you can give behind the message.
Right.
So you can give a message, but what does that bring them? You send them home. Do they now have trauma that they forgot about? Is the grief there? You have to be able to support them. And so if you don't have a therapist, AA, you know what I mean? Psychiatrist, holistic doctors, hypnotist, all of these for the back end of healing, what good are we doing as mediums?
Mhm.
We're just
Right.
delivering a message. And it just shouldn't be like a cold read and, walk away. We have to have that support. So, we were growing pretty big. And I just kind of looked at Tom and said, I ran a pretty big company for 20 years and I'm kind of like rather done doing it. Can you just run this and let me work? So from there,
Yeah, we
he
really
exploded.
we really combined it. There was always, when Stacia first got into this, she wasn't really a paranormal person.
No.
So she was just the metaphysical. She would read. She worked 100, 80 hours a week doing her company. So she really didn't have time for a lot of that. But when we, just by the universe putting us all together, we realized that there was an importance, especially in the paranormal field, right? You're in this field, so a lot of people come to this field to chase their own demons. That's what they're trying to get those answers
Yeah.
and what bothers them and what they put into it, what their intentions are and all that. So it was a good field for us to really bring Wardruna out to really help people work through a lot of these things, whether you're chasing ghosts. But the thing is our home cases that we do are really based off of the system, because a majority of the time when we go to a client's home, they manifest their own haunting.
Yeah.
Through trauma, through things that they go through, what they put on it, what the family dynamic is. And we have to pull those onion layers apart to come to a conclusion where they finally realized my fear is just my misunderstanding and what I went through in life. And now I understand it. And guess what? The paranormal goes away for them and they're able to sleep when they couldn't sleep for the last year or 2 years. So that's kind of what we do, but we recognize other things to the point where, we recognize abuse and they're trying to blame it on a demon. And we have to pull that apart. We're actually going next week. We have to go testify in court over a case where they're saying somebody had a demon on them, where it was just basically from our point of view and our group's point of view, because we talk with everybody and to make sure we're making the right decision, that it was abuse. So
Yeah. I was actually just talking about that, not abuse, but what you're kind of touching on. As humans, we need an excuse of why something's happening.
Correct.
In an abuse situation, they don't, I mean, it's sad, but they never want to blame the other half.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to blame the demon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When it's not a demon, the demon is the other half.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but as humans, we always need an explanation or to excuse why something is happening.
Yeah. Now, Stacia and I've always referred this way, and I think Stacia's one of the first people I ever met that referred to it too. 1% of anything that people think is demonic is actually, there's validity to it if you really pull it apart. I've dealt with it over the years and all that, but the thing is the other 99% is what we call familiar demons. So what those translate to is the things that you do, what your soul does, what you do, and what's controlled by it. Like, let's say alcohol, let's say drugs, let's say carried on, ancestral abuse or those types of things. And those are the things we have to recognize and treat. And then all of a sudden, that paranormal, or what you say is paranormal, goes away. Again, there's people that watch too many TV shows and they use that mentally. Because of my background, being a former criminal behaviorist and profiler, I really bring the forensic side of that into Wardruna to really look at people in a 360-degree view to really come to a conclusion. But I've been doing this for a long time, where groups would call me back when I was in Connecticut, where they couldn't come to a conclusion. I would get called in because I always did solo up until, a few years back, where I started working with groups, but it was more of a teaching basis. but I would go in and really kind of pull it apart. But at the same time, teaching the team how to look at things a little differently too. You know, the same thing Ed and Lorraine did for a lot of us. You know, I'm trying to bring that legacy on by doing the same thing because currently, right now, I'm the same age as Ed and Lorraine were when I first met them at 14. So I
Okay.
feel I need to give back for that memory because I think without Lorraine, I don't know where my life would have went. You know, I could have ended up in jail in the Lulu farm, not knowing why I felt the way I did as, you know, an empath. And then luckily I finally gave in and to my ancestors and said, okay, I'm a shaman already. Stop beating me up. So, and, you know, that's kind of how it is. They keep putting stuff in your life until you wake up. It's like a McFly. McFly, you have a destiny, so take a hold of it and do what you need to do. So
Yeah. I think a lot of people out there is you got to be yourselves
Yeah.
mhm.
and not try to be something you're not. And it sounds like kind of like that's what you want. Like you woke up and like, I got to be me.
Yeah.
And, Lorraine, you want to make her proud.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Deep down, that's what you want to do.
Well,
So that's cool.
we kind of know. We kind of know, and we'll tell you a little bit of tidbit and all that for your show of what happened over this past weekend.
Amazing.
So John Zaffis, I've known John for 40 years now, and he's a very good friend of ours. He got to know Stacia, and we talk, you know, at least every other 2 days and all that. So we all decided we were going to get together, and we were part of his thing at Haunted Hillview Manor, where he did a day there with people who could come in and go with John and ghost hunt and get to hear him lecture and all that. But the night before, we spent the night at a friend's very haunted place that's been on a lot of TV shows nearby, and you know, we were there and just kind of just getting to know like a little bit more. We had another friend of ours, Mary Jo Chudley, was there with us, so there was the four of us staying and just actually investigating and really seeing things and bringing that energy in that how we intertwine as a group. But when we went to Haunted Hillview Manor, we were down in the basement area, and John put on what's the Echo Vox, which is an app, and he has speakers on it and all that. So it's, you know, very similar to a lot of the things that are out there. But he had that going, and when you know somebody for a long time, like of course John, his aunt and uncle, of course he knows every nuance of them. You know, my time with Lorraine and Ed, I you can't mistake the voice, and I know Mary Jo knows Lorraine's voice too. So we're all like asking questions and all that, and people are kind of chiming in, and clear as day through the Echo Vox was Lorraine Warren's voice, and we heard it. John heard it. You know, a lot of people heard it. You know, John had to calm everybody down so we could start having a conversation. But for me and John, both of us going way back in our way we look at demonology and all that too, we had to be sure. So what we know in the past and from studies, and it's all theory, but we believe that the demonic has problems with numbers and ages and things like that. So my first instinct to verify that this was actually Lorraine's voice, I asked her. I said, Lorraine, how old was I when we first met? And it said 14, and it was her voice. So she remembers. So we're going on and on. And then John was like amazed. I mean, to be able to hear his aunt's voice again, I think was, you know, people got to understand that's family, and put the paranormal aside. That was his aunt. So
Yeah.
I could imagine how overwhelming it was for him. Definitely was for me. Because I lost it. You know, I lost
Oh,
it. And then Stacia kind of took over and started asking questions. And she asked a very important question. I'll let you tell the rest of it.
And well, I'll give some background to that.
Yeah.
I was right around, I say like 21, maybe around 22. And I had a dream, and this woman came up to me in this dream, and she goes, "You are like me, darling," like that. When I woke up, I went, "Who the hell was that old lady? Who did that to me?" And I just chuckled. Now, years later, I put my son on the school bus, and I had the TV on, and it was on like the History Channel or something. And I'm running the vacuum. And as I just glanced up, there was a woman on TV, and I went, "What the hell?" And, I'm from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I live in the Appalachians. And unless, you have to understand back in the, before, 2000, well, this would have been a little after 2000, but anyways, you didn't really know.
Yeah, if you didn't,
Live in,
for me, I lived in Connecticut. If
Yeah.
you like the weird stuff, you're bound to meet Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
Outside in New England and area, I don't think anybody really knew him
Yeah,
until the
or-
Conjuring
yeah.
movies.
early 2000, you didn't know them. So I'm looking on TV, and it's the Amityville house. And there's this woman talking, and I turn off the vacuum and I sit down, and I'm like, "Who the heck is that?" Now I recognize the Amityville house. We grew up with that movie. And I'm like, "Who is this woman?" And I read it at the bottom, and, it's talking about, investigator, medium, and everything. And I'm like, okay, that's the woman that was in my dream. Push it aside. No big deal. Well, then, I'm going through life, and these Conjuring movies come out. I'm like, "Who the heck is this woman?" So I started making jokes about it. Okay. So if it wasn't for me making complete jokes about it, I don't think the story would be believable. So then when I go on to this show, out of nowhere, I'm minding my own business one day. And another thing I have to put, I worked so much in the power plants that I didn't have time to watch TV. So when these people started asking me, "Do you know who this is? Do you know who this is?" I'm like, "No, I really don't." We went out to dinner with Nick and Tessa Goff, and they're talking like, "I'm sorry, I don't know you." I'm like, "I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I don't know these people." So
It's great to be able to introduce her to people like they're brand new.
yeah,
These
Yeah.
are people I've known for years, with Nick, and I know Tessa is his wife now, which is over, over the last few years. But, you meet these people over the years, especially when they're young. It's funny, we're all getting old now, but that's okay. But we still have our little inside jokes and all. But, and bringing Stacia into the fold to get to meet all these people very organically, not seeing them on TV and prejudging or anything like that. What a lot of people do in this industry. We're all human beings. We all put our pants on all at the same time, and we all have a goal to figure out what happens after we die.
So, I'm on the show, and this one guy said to me, "Do you know who John Zaffis is?" I went, "No." I'm like, "Who's John Zaffis?" So they started explaining. So, after we hung up, of course, I look him up. No, that's fine. And it's like a couple weeks later, it comes up Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I thought it was the Mohicans. I was working with them. So I answered the phone. I said, "Hello." And I hear Stacia. And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "My name's John Zaffis. Do you know who I am?" "Well, now I do." I went, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "What are you doing?" I'm watching you.
Mhm.
And I went, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" He goes, "What are you up to?" So I started telling him about Wardruna. He goes, "You're the real deal." I said, "I hope so, sir." He goes, "No, you're going to say I know from now on." I said, "No, you have to be humble. Your gifts can be taken away at any time." He goes, "Well, I'll be in touch, but I'm watching you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm just like,
Looking out the windows and stuff. Like, oh.
yeah, I was just like, "What the heck?"
You
So-
gotta love John. He's a lot of people look at him so serious now. He's the biggest jokester you'll ever meet.
He's funny.
The best. So.
So, we go back and forth, and we finally meet for the first time out here at Mansfield. And him and I just instantly clicked. We really did. I meet him for the first time. I go to bed that night, and I have a dream of his Uncle Ed and his mom, who were twins. And I'm like, I got a message for you, John. So I give him this message, and he's like, "No, no, no." And I'm like, "Please don't be mad. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." He's like, and he just starts laughing. He goes, "That was an inside family joke. There's no way you would have known that." Put his arm around me and said, "You know what, kid, you're all right."
Mhm.
So I got, more messages now from Ed than I did Lorraine. Lorraine came in a few times. So now we're at the box
Yeah.
and asking questions. And, John is just looking. I mean, you could hear Lorraine's voice. I never met her, but in a dream. And Tom is choked up when he hears 14. So now I'm left to ask questions. And I said, Lorraine, was it you that came to me in that dream? Yes. And I said, did you come to me so I could meet these two men? Yes. Just like that. And, that's when he really kind of lost it because, we're partners now. And it's amazing how spirit works because she was alive when she came to me in that dream. How spirit works, but then how spirit works after you're gone. It's just the soul itself, how it travels and the knowing and a bigger plan. We run everything by John, and he is such an amazing just resource, mentor, just a guide in life. Even when we had this case that we got subpoenaed to, I laid out the whole case in front of him and I said, this is what I see. Am I seeing this right? Like, I don't want to think this about a person and then, have to call resources in to help these children. But this is what I'm seeing. And he goes, it's what you're seeing. He goes, sometimes these calls have to be made. So, when we got subpoenaed to the case, actually the state told us we were a very well put together group because I mean, with therapists, priest, Mary Jo Chudley over, the home investigation, we background checks. I mean, we gave them a file of, everything that we had, and the state actually built a case on it.
Yeah. It's good to be recognized that way or validated with all the work that we're doing. But this is, again, the thankless job.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there, a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of that stuff. We're behind the scenes. And I always tell people, I learned it a long time ago, something I garnered over the years, and what I learned when I first got into this is you have two things to worry about: your client and spirit. Everything else doesn't really matter. If you take care of those two things, then everything will take care of itself. Talking to you today, I love doing this stuff and all that. But again, I really got to look at it. Sometimes things are fleeting, and I have to remember that if, all this goes away, and I always remember that even if it's all gone and I don't do any paracons, we're not doing any paracons, we're not doing TV shows, podcasts, radio, whatever, talking all over the country, globally, or anything like that. Still remember there are people out there that we need to help as clients, and we need to
Right.
help spirit too. But what she does and how she talks to clients, I talk to the dead. It's funny because the funny part of it is I've been known for that for years. There are a lot of pay to play places that I think you've talked about, Ryan, that don't allow me in because they're afraid I'm going to make all their spirits go away. Because as a shaman, I am able to communicate with the dead, whether with devices or whether through cognition, that what I see, I help them see what their anchor is that's keeping them here and relieving them of their trauma and giving them the direction to go. I can't make them go. It's the thing I say to people all the time. When I talk to the dead, it's the same thing if you were a smoker. All right. And I told you to quit smoking. Ultimately, it's not me that quit smoking. It's you to make the decision with the words I gave you. So I counsel the dead and they make the decision if they want to leave or not. But really, if they want help, my spirit guides tell them just say his name. And if you ever investigate with us and you turn a box on, you're going to hear my name over and over and over again because there's people ready. I says, I love this plane, but I want to see what the other ones, but I can't find the door. And I show them
Right.
where the door is and they open it and they go through. So that's simple as that. And where they go, I don't know. I'm pretty much that's where the boundary is for me. I show them where the
Okay.
door is and say, hey, go ahead. This is where it is, and you take that moment. So,
Let's talk about that a little bit because
mhm.
like we talked about pay to play places. So a lot of places say, do not open up, let my spirits leave.
Mhm.
Now, on one side, I can understand that because they're running a business.
Yeah.
Right. Is it wrong? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if a spirit wants guidance to leave and you're a decent human being,
Yeah.
you're going to help them find their way. Right.
It's exactly what you should do. And I see what they're trying to do business wise. That's the human side of us. But the
Right.
spiritual side of us is we are not the wardens to spirit.
No.
We can't keep them here. It's their choice to leave, but they're stuck. If you saw like somebody on the side of the road that was hurt and all that, you would try and see if you could help them. That's the
Right.
human, side that you should do. But spiritual, it's the same thing. Somebody's stuck and they can't seem to find their way out. So we have to counsel them and see what's anchoring them here, whether it be a trauma, a fear, that what's waiting for them on the other side, those types of things. And it's a matter of showing them, what the happiness is and that they have free will and that the trauma is not holding them here anymore. And there's a lot that goes into it. I'm actually currently working on a book about exactly what I do and other modalities and what other people I've known over the years have used, because my method may not work for everybody. But that's something I garnered by trial and error over the years and how I deal with spirit and assist. So,
All right. So let me ask you, because this always fascinates me. This is when I started this podcast, I had no idea my thought process would go toward this area. But why do you think spirits are so-called trapped here, stuck here? I mean, I have a theory, but I want to hear your theory.
I
I
really
know there's
look
probably
at it.
many different, but there's probably a lot of them. But can you just kind of
Let's
sum
put
it
it
up?
this way. Let's put it this way, the human side of things. There's people that are depressed, they can't get out of bed, right?
Right.
Sometimes that happens. They're really stuck. Some people are, alcoholics and all that, and they just keep drinking and drinking. And when they're in that drunken state, they don't know where they're at. They don't know what's going on. And anything human wise, even the spirit, the difference I think between us and the spirit is we still have a meat suit, which I call it. They don't. So there's still that similar back and forth where they could hold on to a trauma that's keeping them from leaving. There's fear that might be anchoring him, that they feel like I didn't live a good life and I'm not going to be able to go to the next life. I'm afraid what's going to happen. I'm afraid what darkness is coming to me or anything like that. Or unfinished business is another big one.
Right.
Or some of them are waiting, they don't want to pass. They're waiting for a loved one to guide them with them. It's like they don't want to do it without them. I think if I passed and all that, I would wait for Stacia before I make transition, because I want to do it with her, because we do everything together. So it's just, I think even when your meat suit's gone, you still have that yearning to finish things. If I'm cleaning the house and all that, I didn't vacuum, I don't want to leave the house till I do the vacuuming. So it's almost the same, the spirit world. There was something in my life I didn't do that I need to make right before I can make transition. And I try and assist people with that. Case in point, I had a case where a spirit was a World War II vet. He was an alcoholic and really treated his family terribly, from the history that we found out. He was stuck in this house and he felt the only way he would be able to transition is if somebody helped him put daisies on his wife's grave, is the message that came through. So there was a lot of paranormal, almost poltergeist activity going on in this home. Now, I figured out where the woman's grave was with Find a Grave and all that. And we went and put daisies on her grave and actually played their favorite song, Dream a Little Dream. Once I did that, I think it was like later on that night, the family said, did something happen today? Because the house feels so light and it's clear now. And I said, yes. I says, we did a ceremony to help the spirit that was in there that was angry and depressed and trying to get your attention. And we helped him with what his request was. And it helped him transition. So just by doing something to help another person out, again, a spirit, no meat suit, but still that same yearning to have something solved and to help somebody to help make that transition.
And as a medium, basically what he said is what I see. I'm not leaving until my wife comes with me. I get them where they have left. And, people have to understand just because they cross over does not mean they can't come back
Mhm.
to visit. They come back in a lighter, more healed form. They have lifted their trauma. I get some where they have bounced so far. Like I had a suicide victim, and I just looked at him and I tapped him and I said, that they want to talk to you. And he goes, I don't want to go back there. I'm fine right here fishing. Just tell him I'm good and I don't even want to come back to visit. So I had to give that message and they cried. Like, that's all he ever did was fish. I said, he is really happy where he's at, but he doesn't want poked. He wants you to remember him this way, but he's fishing. Just let him go. I have some where they are fine to come back and forth. When we do get the ones that are depressed and trapped and lost and trying to navigate through, things or suddenly killed, and it's just the shock. So, there's many levels of,
It is.
why I think that they're here.
It's like a video game.
Yeah.
You play level 1 and you master it. You go on to level 2, but then, oh, geez, you lose a life and they send you back to level 1, but you've already mastered it. So it's easier to go through. I think it's the same thing in the spirit world. As you level up, you're learning just like we do during this life. It's just a continuation of learning and being able to go back and give that knowledge, or whether she picks up as a medium,
Oh.
that knowledge they learn to help their own loved ones or their ancestors, people that they're attached to build that bridge to get through this life. Because I firmly believe in the afterlife. They don't have watches like we do.
Right.
They could travel before, after, up, down, like a Willy Wonka elevator all over the place, sideways, byways, and all that, and be able to bring message and guide. Um, Really, it is your loved ones never leave you. Your ancestors don't leave you. They're there to guide. It's like they're watching a TV. They're watching that their DNA is still going on, and they try and assist any way they can. And that's why our group Wardruna is so important, especially now with a lot of changes going on in this industry, but just a lot of changes going on in our country and our world and all that. I think it's a very well needed thing right now.